Okay, so far we created a pipeline that is responsible to get the latest version of the code, create the image out of it, push the image to Docker registry, and the next step is deploying the latest version of the code inside Kubernetes because we want it to be up and running for test purposes, right? That part is basically the CD part, and for the CD part, the tool that we are going to use is ArgoCD. Basically, ArgoCD is a powerful CD tool which is responsible to take care of deployments inside the Kubernetes cluster, provide us with so many features. You can see the whole architecture of your cluster as a matter of deployments in a single view. But how we should leverage it? First, we need to know how ArgoCD is actually working. Let's go back to the browser. And here is a graphical presentation of what do we have and what do we need to do next. And this is our CICD pipeline. These are the stages that we created inside that pipeline, which is git clone, build and push, and update the deployment repository. We didn't cover this so far. Actually, we need this step because we want to use ArgoCD. Let's see how ArgoCD actually works. ArgoCD connects to a repository which hosts the deployment files itself, or a Kustomize or Helm repository to track the changes for the deployments. It is fetching the content of the repository periodically and then check the content against the deployment configurations inside the cluster. If there is any discrepancies, it will inform you, or based on the strategy you just defined to it, it can just apply it directly or ask you for approval or just notify you. We will see how it works quickly. But the point is that there should be a registry that hosts all the deployment configuration so that ArgoCD is able to read from it and deploy everything defined in that repository. So first we need to create a repository. This is a repository I just created only to host the deployment files. As you can see, I leverage the Kustomize. If you don't know Kustomize, you can just refer to the documentation itself. It's quite straightforward. I don't want to fully cover Kustomize or ArgoCD because those should be covered in separated video. But what we should know for now is that Kustomize is a simple templating system which you can define a base with let's say a template for your deployments, and then you can decide on each environment which specifications should be assigned to that deployment. So basically you can have deployments inside your base directory, and then you can change the replicas or environment variables or namespaces or any features, any specification related to deployment inside separated folders or even inside separated branches. That's the goal. Let's see what do we have here. Going back to the VS Code, here, where am I? That's fine. Let's see the structure. Okay, as you can see, there is a base directory which consists of a deployment file for Kubernetes and the service and a customization YAML. Let's go quickly through all of them and see what do we have here. In the deployment file, you can find a simple deployment file for Kubernetes. Nothing special here, but the point is that the image in the base is defined as the latest, right? We will change it based on the environment we are trying to deploy this deployment. But for now, let's keep it as latest inside the base directory. And for the service, there is a very simple service attached to the deployment to provide it and to provide accessibility to it. And then inside the customization, this is the format of the customization file, which simply just show that this is a deployment managed by Kustomize. You can see the API version here, and then the kind is Kustomize. The name I just set as arbitrary, doesn't matter at all. You can just set it whatever you want. And for the resources, we indicate that all the resources that should be covered through the Kustomize apply is deployment file here and the service file here as well, right? Then we have some overlays. In most of the scenarios, you have an image, you need to first deploy it in the development environment, and then if every tests are passed, you can just send it to the stage environment for final tests or load tests, and if all the tests is already passed, you can just deploy it inside production. So it makes sense that inside the overlay we have the dev, we have prod, and we have a stage. And for the time being, the only deployment file, the only template file I created is inside the development environment. So inside the development environment, I have the same deployment here, but the image is changed to something like this. We can take care of it during the CICD pipeline itself. So basically inside the CICD pipeline, it will just pull it and then change the tag based on the commit ID and then push it to the deployment repository itself. And for the service, quite straightforward, just a simple service to attach to this deployment. And this is the customization. We define that our template roots resides inside base. So basically we instruct Kustomize, look first inside the base directory and then replace the things available here with the main file, with the file available inside the base. This is how Kustomize works. So for now, we need to tune our CI/CD pipeline a little bit. First, we need to make it to be triggered automatically on every change inside the source Git repository, right? We didn't cover that yet. So first, let's make it. And in the next step, we are going to create new stage for it, which is responsible to pull from this new registry, this new repository, change the image, and then push it to the registry again. Let's see how we can do it. Going back to the VS Code, let's go back to the pipeline we have. We need another stage here. Let's say I just copy all this block and then paste it here. And this time it is responsible to, let's name it as update cluster deployment repository. And which container is responsible to do so? We don't need Canico to do that, right? Because we have all the things we need inside the JNLP container itself. So I refer back to JNLP and just delete all the rest steps here. Okay. Thinking about the steps, we first need to refer to the Git repository and pull it, right? We are going to cover it like this time, because this syntax provides us with more feature, like pull all the branches first, and that is what we need, because basically what we are going to do is updating the deployment for development environment inside separated branch, right? So this is the actually address for the Git. I will just pull the master branch and all the change logs and pull all the branches first. What I need to do next is modifying the file just pulled, right? Because we want to update the tag for the image, right? So let's see how we can do that. The way that I am going to implement it is using some shell scripts. So inside this script, I defined a variable namely text, which is responsible to read from the dev-deployment.yaml file. It's already pulled. If you can remember, just going back to the repository, as you can see, there is an overlay and inside overlay we have a dev directory, and inside the dev we have dev-deployment file, right? So this is the file that we want to update, and this is the line that we want to update. So going back to VS Code again, this is the address for the file we want to modify, and then there is a very simple way for updating the file content provided by Jenkins itself, and that is the replace all functions, right? Just remember, we are writing Groovy language script, right? So we can access to all the functions available there, and one of the functions for text are replace all, right? So what we're gonna do is replace all the image, column, whatever after that with image. This is a Docker registry address and the commit ID. Let's say it should be commit ID, and as you can remember, we defined the commit ID up here, so it is basically accessible to all the stage during the pipeline, right? So we just replaced it. We want to write it down again to the same file. So with write file, I just instructed to write it again inside the same file with the content text, which is here, and then just to make sure, I will cut it to see if all the changes are already applied. So far the only thing that we did is just pulling the image from the cluster deployment and then modify the image tag and just check if the image tag is successfully replaced or not. Let's copy it all, go back to the Jenkins, and let's say, oops, I have to log in again, and then paste all the code here, apply, going back to the job itself and build it again. Let's see what is happening here. Okay, this is the second stage for building the Docker image, and after that we should see the modified deployment file. Just pull new registry. Yeah, there it is. This is the output for the command. Okay, perfect. So as you can see, we just successfully managed to update the image tag. So the next step is pushing the changed file inside the local agents directory to the remote repository. Let's cover it quickly. Going back to the VS Code again. We don't need this step anymore because we already covered it. What we need to do is, first we want to create a new branch. First of all, we are going to push some changes to Git remote repository, right? So we need to define variables for the Git, including username and usermail. Let's quickly do that first. Okay, we are good to go here, and the next step is that we want to switch to dev branch, right, and create it if it is not available there. Perfect. You see, these are all the commands that you are actually using inside the shell itself, right? So this is for changing the branch to dev branch, and then we want to add the changed file and then commit it and then push it to the dev branch itself, right? Let's copy all the modified code here, go back to the Jenkins one more time. Going back to the Jenkins, and okay, this is the pipeline editor. Apply and then rerun it. Let's see what happened now. Okay, as you can see, these are all the configurations we just add to the Jenkins script. Assigning user mail, assigning username, and then check out to the dev branch, and then adding, committing, committed, the changes are committed, and then okay, pushing, and yeah, there it is. There is an error here. So this is saying could not read username for GitHub. No, okay. The point is that just similar to the situation we had with Docker registry, now we have a Git repository and we want to push some changes to it. And we didn't provide the credentials, right? So basically it is not possible to access that repository and change materials though. So let's see how we can actually manage the credentials inside Jenkins and provide it through our script, so it can simply just connect to the repository and push the changes. Let's go back to the Jenkins configuration itself. First, let's go back to the cluster deployments actually. This is the repository that I want to provide the access for it. I don't want to go with username and password. What I do is basically creating a token for Jenkins access for now. To create a personal access token, what I have to do is going to my own profile under settings, and then I have to go to developer setting, and inside developer setting I would go for personal access token and tokens. Let's generate new token. Let's first revoke all of them. Okay. Nice, and then generate new token. Let's say this is Jenkins token, and the expiration would be 7 days, 1 week, and all the things in the repos would be fine, and then generate the token. And then copy it. Going back to the Jenkins configuration, I would go to manage Jenkins here, and then going to manage credentials, and inside the credentials going to system and global access, and then add a credential. The credential kind is in this hub, let's say username and password would work fine for GitHub as well, so I would go for it. My username is this, and then for password I will paste the token I just created, right? So pasting in here, and let's say ID. For the ID I will say it is GitHub token, or GitHub itself is enough, and then create it. Now somehow I have to address to these credentials, to this new credentials inside the Jenkins file. Let's go back to VS Code and see how we can do that. So this is the file that we developed so far. Basically the push should be happened when we provided the credentials. We need to add a new block with credentials. Basically we instruct that pipeline, that step, to use specific credentials, right? And inside this we are going to say that this is a Git username and password, and the credentials ID is GitHub, just we created before. Yeah, that's true, this is GitHub. And then just push, and then just put this command here, right? Let's copy all the code, going back to Jenkins pipeline configuration, paste it, apply, and then rerun it. Let's see if it can pass this successfully. Yeah, there it is. We managed to push the changes inside the remote Git repository. It's very good. So the last thing I want to do is to instruct this pipeline to be triggered on Git changes. Basically, we have two approaches here. One very simple and straightforward way is to use GitHub webhooks, right? Or any Git webhooks. Git webhooks can be configured to send a webhook to the Jenkins URL and invoke the pipeline to start, right? Invoke the pipeline. It is very straightforward and quite easy to use, but it comes with some security concerns, and I don't want to go with that. What I'm gonna do is enabling pull-SCM here and then provide a schedule for it. So basically this schedule 5-star simply means just check the remote repository every minute. Compare it with what you have, and if there is any changes, just start the pipeline. Hit apply and we are good here. So we are done with our pipeline itself. There is nothing more that we want to do during this CI/CD pipeline. We are done here. There is only one part left, which is CD part. And for CD part, we first need to install ArgoCD in our cluster. Let's see how we can do that. Going back to ArgoCD documentation itself, there is a very simple and straightforward way to create it. The first step is to create a namespace for ArgoCD and then apply a file which can be found in this directory. What I want to follow is the same approach as we did before. Going back to Visual Studio Code terminal. Let's see, where are we? Okay, and then 3 here. Okay, what do we have here is tools, we have Jenkins, we have Nginx ingress, and then we need another directory here for ArgoCD. Let's make it quickly. CICD tools and then ArgoCD and then tools and then ArgoCD. I want to have this file available in my Git repository as well. So what I'm gonna do is download this file first. What was the URL for it? It is here. Okay, going back to the VS Code terminal again and then paste it here. Okay, then there is a file inside the ArgoCD. Let's see, what is it? Okay, basically this is all the configuration we need to bring up the ArgoCD, right? What we need to do is first create ArgoCD namespace and then apply the file we just downloaded inside ArgoCD namespace, right? Okay, let's see what do we have inside ArgoCD namespace. ArgoCD, there you go. We have everything we need available here. To access ArgoCD, I need to do a trick because I didn't register any DNS record so far. This is only for test purposes. So what I'm gonna do is changing the service actually assigned to the server component, ArgoCD server. I will change this service to load balancer. Service ArgoCD, and this is the service. And let's go to the configuration. So the type is cluster IP, which is not desired for us. I will change it to, let's say, load balancer, and then apply it, and then ArgoCD. Okay, the type is already changed. I am just waiting for the external IP. Okay, now we have the IP address available here. I will copy it. Let's go back to the browser and then, sorry, just paste it here and there you go. Yeah, this is the ArgoCD already implemented in our cluster, already deployed in our cluster. To log in this, the username is admin, but for the password, let's go back to the terminal again. Let's see, what do we have as a secret? ArgoCD. We have a secret named ArgoCD initial admin secret. Let's get it. Our secret, this one, ArgoCD YAML, and this is the password. Let's copy it. Echo this password, paste for D. Yeah, this is the password that we have to use for the initial part. Let's go back to the browser and then paste it here. Okay, perfect. This is the web UI of ArgoCD. So what we need to do is first go to setting and define new repository, right? So connect the repository through HTTPS for now because it's basically a public repository. The project is default because we didn't define any project for now. The Git repository URL, let's go back to, where is it? Is it this? No. Going back to, where is it? Yeah, there it is. Here, and then copy it and then paste it here, and that's all. Hit the connect and the connection is successful. So we already managed to introduce new Git repository that ArgoCD is responsible to watch and deploy based on that repository. Let's go back to application, create new application. Let's say the name we will set for development-env, something like this. Project is defined, we didn't define any project. Auto creation namespace, yes, because basically we want to deploy this new deployment for development environment inside dev namespace. And then go to repository URL. This is the repository we just defined in the setting. And then which actually revision we want to follow the dev branch, right? Because basically we designed our CI system in a way that push all the changes related to dev environment into the dev branch. So let's select dev here, and then for the path, as you can see, it can easily just detect the path for the Kustomize, and we want to deploy all the deployment file available inside overlay dev. No other setting is needed actually. Then let's create it. Okay, sorry. The target cluster is default class and default, which actually refer to the cluster that ArgoCD is already installed in, right? You can attach several clusters, several different Kubernetes clusters to ArgoCD, but for time being, we only intend to install our deployments inside the same cluster. And the namespace for that would be dev namespace, which is not already exist, but dev is good. And let's create and see if it can detect anything or not. Okay. As you can see, it's already detected the repository and the status is out of sync. This is because we have a deployment file, we have a deployment template inside Git repository, which we don't have it inside our cluster, right? So ArgoCD just detected and it is saying us, I detected some deployment, I don't have it inside the Kubernetes. So if I hit the sync button here, I just instruct it to create the namespace and sync the status of the deployments inside Kubernetes cluster with what we defined inside the Git repository. Let's synchronize it. It's in the syncing status. Let's go through it. There we go. As you can see, the development already created. This is a service for Go app, and this is the deployment itself, and everything looks good. So let's go back to the terminal one more time. And then, as you can see, now we have a namespace here, namely dev, which is created like 40 seconds ago. And if I get everything inside it, I have my deployment here, I have the service defined in the repository here. So far so good, everything works fine. For the last time, for testing the CICD pipeline we just developed from the 0 to 100, let's change the code from the source repository one more time and see if we can just check that the pipeline is triggered, and then change the code, update the image tag, create the Docker image, push it to the registry, and then ArgoCD is responsible to deploy it inside our cluster. Let's see. Going back to the web browser one more time. Okay, let's go back to the Jenkins. And the last build actually is number 10, right? Let's go back to the repository, and this is the Go app. Let's go, doesn't matter actually in any of these files. Let's go to this one, just randomly selected, edit, add some comments here, and then commit the change, right? So now we have a change inside the Git repository. Let's see what do we have inside Jenkins panel. As you can see, immediately the build is started, and then just checking the console output, this time this is started by SCM change, right? Remember, we configure it in a way that it checks the Git repository periodically and detect the changes. This is our pod configuration inside the Kubernetes plugin, and then in the first step it is cloning the remote repository, and then it is creating the Docker image. It already detected the commit ID and updated the image tag. Okay, just push the changes. Everything is good here, and the status is already success. Going back here, we can see all the logs for each step, as you can see, like this. And then going back to ArgoCD, what is expected is that ArgoCD should detect the changes inside the deployment repository and hint us that something is out of sync, right? If we enable the auto sync configuration inside ArgoCD, ArgoCD will automatically deploy the new deployment inside our cluster. For time being, it is disabled and we want to manually just sync it. It's a normal practice to get auto sync option on inside development environments, right? So let's wait a little to see if it can detect the changes available in the repository. Okay, as you can see, it detected that something is out of sync, right? If I go here, I can see that deployment itself is out of sync, right? Because you know what happened? The image tag for the deployment has been changed, right? We didn't have any change for the service part. So service is okay already according to the repository, but the deployment we have inside our cluster is out of sync with the Git repository. And what can I do? Simply is just hitting the sync and then synchronize. And let's quickly go back to the terminal, and see what do we have here. This time instead of all, let's say PO. As you can see, this is running, and then this one is container creating. As soon as it is up, the last one will be deleted. Let's see. There we go. This is the only container available here because the replica is set to 1. And yeah, we just implemented the full CI/CD pipeline. Hope you enjoyed it. I just wanted to ask, if you find this video useful, please hit the like button, please do subscribe and share the links with your friends or colleagues who you think that might be useful for them as well. Thank you for bearing with me, and ciao.